Alright guys, today I'm going to be talking about dosage calculation and particularly the factor label method way. And the first question I always get, why bother, Dr. Perkins? Why can't I just memorize a bunch of shortcuts? That's way easier. Why do you insist on doing the factor label method way? Well, hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll understand why. So to explain that question, I'm going to take a side step and I'm going to be talking about learning another skill. For example, reading. So there are two broad approaches to learning how to read. Learning through phonics and learning through sight words. Learning through phonics is like sounding out your math, right? For example, I have two children that I homeschool, and I've taught them to read, and it was pretty difficult using the phonics approach. Or at, what's that word? Dog? No, Betty, it's not dog. Does dog sound anything like or at, right? And so it took a little bit of effort up front. It would have been a lot easier just say, Benji, it's rat. Bam, right? He immediately grasped it. He could say that word real easy. So then why did I bother teaching my children to read through phonics approach? Well, here's why. So if I teach my children to read through phonics, so for example, I have three words for at, dog, ink, right? Each of those words are going to take more time to learn because they're having to learn what each of those sounds are, right? But what's going to happen at the end of the day? When they learn what those sounds are out of nowhere, they can read all sorts of words. Easily, if you learn just your alphabet through the phonics approach, you can easily read 27,000 words that you've never seen before. For example, S-R-A-T, surat. I've never seen that word before. Or I can't remember the last time I've seen that word, but I could instantly read it. Why? Because I know how to sound out my words, right? And so the huge advantage to the phonics approach is I could throw new words at you, words you've never seen before in your life, and be able to instantly read them, right? I've opened you up to 27,000 words easily, being able to read through the phonics approach. Versus the sight word approach, once you taught your child to read rat, dog, and sink, what words can they read? Rat, dog, and sink. And if you change the word by this much, they're doomed, right? So if it becomes rats or dink instead of sink, they can't do it. Why? Because I've never seen that word before. And so every single word is a new word they have to memorize. So they can't learn, 150 rules, right? If you memorize 150 rules, that's all there is to phonics. And that's a very extensive background in phonics. It pretty much doesn't matter what I throw at you, you're going to be able to read it with very, very few exceptions, and you can memorize those. Versus the look-say method or the whole word method or the sight word method, whatever you want to call it, you're just never going to get further ahead. You're just constantly having to memorize word after word after word after word after word after word, right? And that's the problem. Those children will never get ahead. Well, the same thing holds true to those people that learned how to do math, the dosage calculation through the factor label method versus just memorize a bunch of formulas. Right? You're having to memorize formula after formula after formula after formula after formula after formula. And the formulas change. If the situation changes by this much, they got to memorize another formula. All right? And hopefully they can memorize the right way the units are. And if they haven't used that formula, oh crap, now they forgot. They're going to have to do it all over again. But going back to the phonics approach for reading, how likely is it that my child's going to forget how the letter R sounds? They're not. They're going to remember it. Why? Because they're constantly using at, right? They're constantly using those sounds all the time. And so they're not going to forget it. One of the common complaints I hear all the time from students and faculty alike, when they learn to do math through the shortcut method, dosage calculation is going to be one of the hardest classes they've ever had in their life, or if they somehow manage to pass it, a lot of times they quickly forget it. because it just is because it is, and they don't use any one shortcut very often. Right? How often do you see the word dog? Not very often, but how many times do you see the letter D in words? All the time. Uh, and so that's going to be the major advantage here. And so that is why I teach my students to do it through basically sound out their math, so the phonics of math, because you're going to be apply that to pretty much any problem you run into. And the few ones that you can't, you can memorize the shortcut for. Right? You're no worse off than the people that just memorize shortcuts, because you're doing the same thing that they're doing. For that just one problem. Everything else you're able to figure out on your own. All right. Well, I hope that helps.